Hey everyone, Tony Marfione here. I hope everybody's doing very well. Hey look, a lot of folks have been asking for some tutorials on some of the working videos. One of the ones that came up was specifically about this particular lathe. So I'm just going to be kind of open and just kind of start. Hopefully I won't ramble a whole lot. But you know, as I had stated before, you know, Microtech was founded. We incorporated in 1994, but I began to make knives in 1992. I did gunsmith work mostly before I made knives. So I cut my teeth on equipment like these earlier on in my career. It wasn't on knives, but it was mostly doing machinist type style work, mostly in the gunsmithing arena for gun shops, mostly on the suppressor side. So, you know, between rifles, because think about it, you know, the luxury we have today, there's not too many commercial guns you couldn't probably acquire that don't already have a threaded barrel, but back in the day, 80s and 90s, it was far and in between. I'm not saying that factories didn't do it, but we didn't have that luxury a whole lot, so threading was a common thing to do, amongst other things. So, you know, the HLV DR from Hardinge out of New York was a very advanced lathe, tool room lathe. So there's none like it in the world, and there still isn't today, even though they're not made anymore, and there's many copies of it, which we do own, because they were discontinued in the late 90s, I believe. I wish I would have bought 3 more, but it was a very expensive piece of equipment at the time. I think it was closer to around maybe $45,000 US when I bought it back in 1994. So this machine was made in 1994. And it was the first heavy piece of equipment I purchased. So instrumental for us is, you know, not so much for the knife making aspect, but for what we were doing at Microtech at the time, which included formatting our own tooling, of course, making small parts, pins, buttons, things along those lines, jeweling of buttons, inlays, that sort of thing. You know, this lathe is probably overkill for that, but I wanted one since the first day I ran one. And, you know, my previous employer, I worked at Knight's Armament, which was and a very interesting experience to say the least. But he had 2 of them in the modeling area where I worked, and I fell in love with them there ever since. So, you know, we've used these throughout the factory. We have some in our build team area, we have some in our modeling area, and of course this one particular Hardinge is the very first one that I purchased. I did send it back out for refurb, and a friend of mine, Paul Babin from Babin Machine, there's a little plug for you, Paul, out of Boston. Wonderful rebuilder, wonderful machinist, great craftsman, and he refurbed this piece. It's not that it was beat to death. It's just, you know, after the years, you know, little scratches here, little wear marks there, everything else. But he took the piece in and reground the ways and just made it like new for me. So it's under my care, and I don't let anybody usually use this piece of equipment. So today I'm just going to demonstrate a very simple operation. I'm going to do a very simple threading operation. Not on a barrel, but on a piece of bar stock, so make no misconceptions. If I was threading a barrel, it would be actually done a totally different way to get it turned between centers. So this is just a piece of bar stock, and I'll take you through it. So just stand by for a few moments and take a quick look. Yeah, so I'm not going to take you through the individual aspects of what I'm doing here. You know, I'm going to face off this piece of bar stock right now and get that RPM up just a little bit. Squaring this up. Go ahead and re-zero this out. I'm going to turn down this segment. $6.18. So, you know, what have I made on this lathe? You know, we have a product called the ADO, or Alpha Detachment Operative knife that we did. The very first pieces we did, we made those on the Hardinge, or at least the blanks. That's the solid handle dagger knives that we did. We made a diving variation and everything else, but we made those, we made the caps, we made just about everything. So, I mean, this lathe was instrumental in making tooling, but we made some of the prototype pieces on this lathe as well. When it came time for me to make pens in the early 90s, for what very few that I did, I made them here on the Hardinge as well. So a wonderful, wonderful lathe with so many capabilities to do some neat things. So anytime you see any of the earlier vintage Microtechs that had button inlays, especially the jeweled ones on the face, they were done on this lathe. So, you know, we still do them. Anytime I do any kind of inlays of that sort, I'll do them on the Hardinge. And it just, I don't know, this is one of my Kung Fu strengths. You know, my lathe experience goes all the way back till I was probably about, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 years old. My mom dated a guy that worked at Eastman Kodak, and he worked at what there was, I think it was called the Hawkeye plant or something, and that was a tooling segment of Kodak in Rochester, New York. And this guy was a brilliant, his name was Steve, that's all I remember, but brilliant, brilliant machinist, brilliant tool maker. There was a lot of those back in the day, and I had an opportunity to work with him and on just a few Saturdays. And what intrigued me is, you know, being creative when I was a kid, I could turn anything out of a piece of wood into a shape of a knife or a gun or any kind of model. I was into the Star Wars and into the sci-fi stuff in a big way. But walking into a shop where you could actually cut metal and make it into things, I was infatuated from that moment forward. So that was instilled at me at a very, very young age, and it was just something I pursued. I pursued it. You know, a lot of people don't know, but I didn't start out in the machine shop industry or gunsmithing. It's something I morphed myself into. But, you know, I did every kind of jobs. You know, I did everything from cooking, working at restaurants, and also construction work, because that's mostly what my mother's side of the family did. Is they were carpenter framers, sheetrock hangers, also plasterers, and that was the art forms that they did, and that's how they made their livings. But as far as machining, I don't know anybody in the background on either my mother or my father's side. Maybe on my dad's side a little bit. I think some of my half siblings are tool makers, and a few of them worked in the automotive and tooling industry. So it kind of runs in our blood a little bit. But you know, that whole thing. So, you know, can I run a mill? 100%. Can I run these other pieces of equipment? Yes, I can, but my passion is this damn lathe. This is where I get lost in myself to make things. I've done so much work on these particular styles of machines, but it just, it's always captured my imagination. It still does today. So let me play you a little tune here. I'm gonna go ahead and get going. So I'm turning down this rod down to a .619 diameter. I'll create a back shoulder, face off the inside of the shoulder and break it, and then we'll get ready to thread it. Just a simple thing to show you and share with you. I've done a lot more complex work. Yeah, we're there. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back and create a back chamfer or an undercut. And again, I preset this up. This has already been trammed in, so it's not like I would just throw my threading tool and go. This has to be indicated into the head, or actually the perpendicular to the length of the machine, so that this is squared up and the cutter is actually square, 90 degrees square to the cutting edge. So we're going to go ahead and reset this, and I'll get the dogs ready to do the threading. We're going to cut a 5/8 by 24 thread, which is very common to today. Okay. So 0. I'm going to set a length here, also 0. Okay. What's beautiful about the Hardinge, unlike another lathe, is it has dogs on either side that you could set. Typically on a typical engine lathe, it would have a rotary dial that would have odd and even numbers that would have to coincide. So you'd have to be able to break the lead screw, and when you re-engage that, you have to re-engage that on the same number again to be able to pick up, if I remember correctly. I haven't used an engine lathe in years, but the threading on this makes this super, super simple, as you'll see. And it's quick, so check this out. I do have to get it set though. And what I'm setting is I'm setting the dog to be able to disengage the lead screw automatically so I don't collide into the machine or the actual work. So I'm going to do this with the compound backed off. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and engage my lead screw. And as you get closer to your major or your minor diameter, you want to be taking a lot less. Typically, if I'm cutting threads in precision also, Instead of using that, I could use a set of ring gauges, but mostly I'll use a set of micrometers that are designed to check the pitch diameter on the actual diameter itself. So it'll check the bottom of the crest and everything else. So thread mics are the best way to go because you can get within your nominals very, very easy. It's easy to make a mistake and overdo it. Just knock any burrs at the back of the shoulder off a little bit by hand with a very, very, very precise file. Well, there you have it, kids. .5/8 by 24. One of the more common threads out the door today. So, all right, guys. So this kind of concludes the tutorial on the lathe. Like, share, and subscribe our YouTube channel, and put in the comments if you'd like to see anything else. What would you like to see me make? You want to see me grind blades? You want to see me do inlays? You want to see me build masterpieces, which is coming up? Just shoot some ideas. We'd love to share what we do around here. A lot of blood and iron goes into these knives, and like I said, we're passionate about doing it. We have a lot of neat, new, exciting stuff coming up, so definitely take care, and we'll see you soon.